Okay, so to make this skirt, I have drafted my basic skirt pattern. I have a tutorial on how to draft a basic skirt block if you don't know how to. So this is the front pattern. So before I manipulate the front pattern, I went ahead to use it to draft out my back. So you can see me leaving out my zipper allowance here, and this pattern does not have a seam allowance, so I just added 1-inch seam allowance on the side also. So I'm just going to slash this into 2 so that my zipper can go through this, and then I'm going to set it aside so that we can work on manipulating our basic block to form the pattern that we want. So this pattern that I have here is a dartless pattern, does not have a dart, so I did not include that allowance in my waistline when I was drafting my waist. So the waist that I have here is the actual waist measurement. And when I was drafting this, I made sure to put my pattern on fold because I would need to open it up to get the design that I want to get. So now I've put it on fold, and this my crease line here is showing me my center front, so it's very easy for me to see my center front from here. So now I'm just going to label that the center front because it's going to guide me on how open I want my skirt to be. So after having this, now the next thing is for you to draw out the pattern that you want for your skirt. So just like we have it drawn out on this skirt, we are going to draw out our pattern exactly like this. So I'm going to draw the one underneath first, that's the one on the right side, before drawing out on the one on the left side. So for the one on, I'm going to mark from this side, from my left side. I'm going to go down from my waistline by around 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches, okay, from my waist, and then I'm going to mark it like that. So I'm going to be using my free hand, but you can also use a curve to draw this out if that is what you want. Okay, so from this point that I marked, I'm just going to take it through my center front to meet my around my hip line area. So I'm just using this as a guide, okay. Then after joining it to my hip line area on my hemline here, I'm going to measure around 1 inch or 1.5 inches inward like this, and then from there I'm going to connect it like this, okay. So this is going to form my first shape, and then I'll go ahead to map out the second shape. Okay, so for the other one on this side now, the same measurement that I took there, 4.5 inches, I'm going to take it here also, okay. Then using my free hand again, I'm going to connect from that side all the way to the hem here. So you can connect this to the hem also, but I just want it a little bit like that so I can reshape it a bit to give me something like this. So now from here, now I'm going to make my connection from this 4.5 inches mark that I have here. I'm going to connect it to the hem like this using my free hand again. And like I said, you can also try to use a curve for this, but I'm just using my free hand. So these are my style lines, okay. So if you are not okay with what you have, you can redraw it at any point before you cut it out. Okay, so the first one is going to go like this, and the second one is going to go like this. So now what I'm going to do now is to trace out this shape, okay. So I don't want us to get confused. Let me just try to get another marker to. So I'm marking out with this with my blue marker. So one is going to come like this, and this is going to be the other side. So I'm just going to trace out one side like on another paper so that I can work. Okay, so I have another paper underneath it now. So I want to trace out this side that I marked with blue. So now you can see that I've placed it now, and then I'm going to take my tracing wheel, and then I'm going to map out what I have there. Okay, so I've traced it now, but before I remove my pattern, I'm going to shape the side to have exactly what I have on my pattern. So that is one side. So I've shaped it out. So once I shape it out now and then I remove it, I can see my traced line. Okay, so this is what my traced line is looking like. So from here now it goes like this. So your tracing wheel will just make a perforated line for you to follow. So this is what this is looking like now. So I'm going to cut it out. So this is one side of my center front like this, and then I can now cut out the other side. So you can see that I've traced out this side. So now I'm left with this side. So I'm going to cut this out. You can also trace it out if you still want to use this basic bodies block, okay, and you don't want to lose it. So you just trace out the other one also instead of just cutting it. So now that I've cut it, if I place this on top of each other, you can see that I have my style line like this. So the next thing for me now is just to do my slash and spread method to introduce the volume that we can see on this side. So to do this now, you need to decide, I'm going to set this aside and then work on this. You need to decide how many style lines you want to have. Okay, so for me, so I want to have like 4 style lines. So from this side, from the upper part, ignore all this, remember we are not using this, or let me just turn it to this side. Okay, so we are not using this. So from this upper part now, I'm just going to measure the intervals I want between my style lines. So the first one is going to be 3 inches, the next one also is going to be 3 inches. So they have 3 inches spaces in between them. So I have 4 points, 1 2 3 4, and then I'm taking it to this small size. So now I'm going to try to make 4 points here. So you can measure everything that you have here and then you divide it by 4, or you just eyeball it like I'm doing. So I have 4 points here also. So I have 4 points here, I have 4 points here. The next thing is for me to start linking my points together. So the first one is going to go from here to meet the first one here also, and the second one is also going to do just like that. So you can also use your ruler to connect them together so that you can have something straight. Okay, so this is the first one, this is the second one, and the third one is going to come from here also, and then it goes to meet the third line, and then the last one will come from here and then also goes to meet the last line. So these are my 4 style lines. I have 1 2 3 and 4. So the next thing is for me to spread this on my pattern. You can spread it on a pattern or you spread it directly on your fabric. Okay, so I'm going to spread this directly on my fabric. So before you spread it, you need to cut out your style line. So you're going to be cutting through these lines, but you're not going to cut it completely. So when you get here, you stop, then you move to the next style line and then you cut it. So that is how I'm going to cut the 4 style lines, just like this. So we are doing this to introduce more volume to this skirt so that we can add drapes to it. So now I've cut out my 4 style lines. So now the next thing is for me to spread them. So you need to decide how much you want to spread this. So you just measure this using your tape. So now you just take your tape rule now and measure from one end to another. So this is one style, then you measure. If you're going to be opening it up by 6 inches, once you have your 6 inches, you place the next one, then you come over here also, you measure the 6 inches also, then you place it, then you come over here, you spread it by the 6 inches that you're working with. So that's how you spread it. Okay, so I have spread this on my pattern now. It's quite big, so this is what this side is looking like. So now I'm going to cut it out so that I can have something smaller to work with. So while still having my pattern on it, I'm going to cut this out. And remember that on this pattern I don't have my side seam allowance, so when I'm cutting out this side, I'm going to include that allowance. So to make this easier for you, you can just include your seam allowance when you're drafting your pattern. So here on this side, I hope you can see this, on this side I'm including my 1 inch seam allowance. to sew. Okay, so it's important that I don't forget that. Okay, so I've cut this out now. I've been noticed on this side that I spread, I just left allowance because I'm going to close it up so that I can see the excess that I have. So to close this up now, I'm going to be bringing it from one end to another. So you can see from this end, I'm going to close it to have my original pattern. So you can see I'm closing it. So once I close this, I'm going to hold it with a pin like this, and then I'll move to the next one, and then I'm going to pleat it. So you just take it from the first paper to the next paper like this, and then you also hold that with a pin, and then you move to the next paper. You take it from here now to meet the next paper, and then you pin it, and then you do this for the last one also by taking it from here to meet the next paper. So you can see that now I have my original pattern back. So now I can now trim off the excess that I have here. Okay, so here also I don't have my allowance. I'm just going to add the allowance like this. So this is what I have. So now before I remove my pin, I'm just going to carefully take out my pattern. Okay, while holding it, I'll take out the pattern, and then I'm going to pin it back. I'll take out my pattern here also and pin it back. I'll do the same thing for this, and then I'm going to do the last one. So you can see that my drapes are in place, and now I can take out my pin on this side. Okay, so you can see the amount of volume that we have introduced to this skirt now. Okay, so this is what the skirt is looking like now. So you can see the drapes that we have here. So now for my other skirt, you can just place this now and cut it directly on your pattern. You can cut it directly on your fabric, or you just add some slash and spread line also to introduce volume to this if you want. But I'm just going to cut this on my fabric directly. I'm not adding any drapes to this side. Okay, sorry, this is the actual other pattern. Okay, so what I was explaining, if you want to add drapes to this other pattern also, you can just mark out some slash lines here, and then you open it up and add your drapes. Okay, so you have it like this, but I'm not going to be adding any drapes to this, so I'll just cut this out of my fabric and then add my necessary allowances on the side. Okay, so I'm going to cut the other pattern now. So now I'm going to place this on each other, and then I'll take this to the sewing machine so that I can sew this side down like this, so that it can retain my pleats for me. And then I'm going to sew it down on this other side also. So after sewing it on both sides, the next thing is for me to bring in my back. Okay, so I'm just going to bring in my back now, and then sew the back on this side all the way down like this, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. Then I'll take it to the mannequin so that we can see what this looks like.